Welcome, and thank you for joining us on phase 2 of the digital strategy for IBPOC artists and arts organizations, the Digital Tools Professional Development Series. I'm Perry Vulgaris, Digital Associate with CPAMO. Joining us today is Anju and Odessa from CultureBrew. CultureBrew is a digital platform that connects Indigenous and racialized artists, actors, writers, musicians, dancers, filmmakers, directors, designers, singers, stage managers, technicians, administrators, composers, and other performing media arts professionals in a central, searchable database. I would like to introduce Anju, who will take us forward with this session. Anju?
Great, thanks, Perry. Thanks everyone for joining. During the session, we're really hoping to hear a little bit from all of you about some of your experiences, and we're going to run some introductions in a few minutes here as well. But for starters, I wanted to introduce myself, and Odessa will introduce herself. So my name is Anju Singh, and I have been working on the CultureBrew.Art project since June 2018. So that's when the project was first funded by the Canada Council for the Arts Digital Strategy Fund, the same fund that's actually supporting these sessions. So we were very lucky to have had a lot of support from funders like Canada Council for the Arts. And the concept was put together to really give a space for BIPOC artists, IBPOC artists to have a space to be seen and to have a better chance of finding opportunities in the arts and sector and beyond, not just the arts sector, but also other opportunities for Canadian artists. My role at the beginning in June 2018 was as project manager, and I've since moved into a technical director role. And what I do as technical director is we're building the digital product, but the important piece that I'm hoping to get from you by the end of today's session is understanding what features you need as IBPOC artists moving forward so that we can build out features to make this community and this platform the most useful platform for you. Great. I think Odessa, you could, if you want to jump in there.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Odessa Shapoya, and I am from the Kluane First Nation in the Yukon on my dad's side, and I am also English and Irish on my mother's side. And I'm coming to you from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations, colonially known as Vancouver. And I'm an actor and a director, a filmmaker, and a whole bunch of other things in between, sometimes dancer, sometimes singer. I actually got involved with this project sort of in the research and development phase before I think it was even branded as CultureBrew.Art. So I did some community outreach with different actors and producers, theater producers, just to see what was needed in the community. So, but basically based around the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island. So that was my first introduction to this project. And I have actually just joined the team recently, just before Christmas. As the community builder. So I'm continuing in the same vein, reaching out to different artists and engagers, and will be making connections all over the country, hopefully. So thanks for being here.
Great. At this point, we're going to move into our land acknowledgements, which is a really important part of our work. When we do decolonial work, it's super important to us that we really honor this process. So as our hosts, I'm going to open it up to, is it Perry? Are you doing the land acknowledgement for CPAMO?
I am.
Great. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you, and then we'll move over to ours because we're actually all the way across the country from you also.
Great. At CPAMO, we acknowledge that we live, work, meet, and travel on the traditional territories of Indigenous people that have cared for this land, now called Canada. CPAMO is located on the land on which the city of Toronto is situated, which we acknowledge is a territorial traditional territories of the many nations, including the Mississauga, the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat people. CPAMO is committed to creating meaningful relationships and supporting a diversity of practices, art forms, and cultural expressions. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land.
Thank you, Perry. So Anju and I, Visceral Visions, would like to acknowledge that we are participating from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Suquamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, colonially known as Vancouver. We also wish to acknowledge the long and storied history of all the Coast Salish peoples, which includes their ongoing battle for human rights, territorial rights, and social justice, a fight that benefits every single one of us. We are grateful for their leadership, courage, and sacrifice, which informs and inspires our work and aspirations as artists who have the privilege of calling these stolen territories home. We would like to honor the George family from the Tsleil-Waututh First Nation. We would like to honor the Sparrow family from the Musqueam First Nation. And we would like to honor the Weiss family from the Squamish First Nation. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about why it was important to take the time to do a land acknowledgement. One of the reasons we do it is to inspire others to take action and to support Indigenous communities. We don't do it out of guilt or because other people are doing it. We reflect on what our personal goals are in regards to land acknowledgements and how we will support Indigenous organizations, communities, and families. We choose to do the land acknowledgement at this point in our presentation to give it the biggest impact and the respect it deserves, instead of being a perfunctory piece or as a part of housekeeping at the beginning of our presentation, lumping it in with how long the presentation will be, et cetera, et cetera. We want to give it its own space that it deserves. We try our best to correctly pronounce people's names and place names. We use phrases and words like genocide, stolen land, ethnic cleansing, so that it is very clear that we are talking what we are talking about and not sugarcoating it. We use past, present, and future tenses because we, Indigenous people, are still here and we are thriving. We include families and living people from these communities, particularly if you are presenting work in a certain field. And we will highlight Indigenous people who are currently working in that field. Please remember that a land acknowledgement is only a starting point, and that land acknowledgements are living celebrations of Indigenous people today. There's a little bit more I used as a resource. nativegov.org is a good place to start with that if you want some more information, and I can put that in the chat. So thank you.
Great, excellent. Yeah, this is a really important part of CultureBrew.Art's work. We are working in a we're trying to work as best as we can in a decolonized, anti-capitalist model. A lot of, when we talk about racism, when we talk about other types of marginalization, you can't really just easily separate those things from colonialism and capitalism. It's all related. And they're all part of the same thing. And so you're going to see that as we go through our presentation, we're going to bring these things back up again. So as Odessa said, we're not just doing this land acknowledgement to talk about colonization from this, waving at it, okay, yeah, you're there type of thing. This is actually something that we have to really consider in not only how we do our work, but also our artistic practices. And how you as artists want to work. And so, the colonial model hurts everyone. My background is South Asian. And India was very colonized. And so that's where my parents were born. And, you know, as a woman, and I'm only going to speak for my own experiences, women's bodies are colonized, and women's, our minds, our experiences, our understanding of ourselves. And as BIPOC, IBPOC artists, you're going to notice I use those interchangeably, which we could get into. And maybe we should today, but for now, I'm going to hold off on that. But you know, as IBPOC, BIPOC artists, we are often experiencing the colonization of how we experience the world. So decolonization is an act that really serves everyone the best. And so by respecting the people who are here from this land, we are respecting ourselves even better. The next thing that I want to talk about is a little bit CultureBrew. We talk about CultureBrew.Art, but it's actually CultureBrew.Art is a project. It's an initiative that was taken on by an organization called Visceral Visions, which is a society. And Visceral Visions actually started out as a theater company in 2003, it's right there on the slide. And so it's a nonprofit society, and we have to follow the nonprofit rules. But typically, the way that we started was doing theater, producing theater. But the mandate has always been the same, even though Visceral Visions is now moving outside of theater. It made more sense for Visceral Visions to expand. And you'll also notice CultureBrew.Art as a project is talking about all of the performing arts. And so in order for Visceral Visions to serve CultureBrew.Art more correctly, we had to expand the disciplines of Visceral Visions beyond a theater company. And we had to really go into the work of other disciplines, which is now happening. There's an opera being produced, and there's a couple of VR, AR projects that are in the works as well. So the mandate of Visceral Visions is to champion diverse, provocative voices that struggle to be heard in an increasingly homogenized world through the media of artistic expression. So the goal is to promote and foster Indigenous and racialized artists. So this project, CultureBrew.Art, is 100% in line in the mandate of Visceral Visions. So moving forward, we're just throwing these words right up there for you. So just diving right into it. So when we talk about racism, we're talking about racial bias, discrimination, prejudice, and power, and that's racism. But when you add the things that we talked about earlier, when you talk about colonialism and white supremacy and power, that's systemic racism. And I would actually add capitalist to that as well. There's so much systemic racism built into capitalism. So when we had all of the Black Lives Matter action, which is still happening, but when it really was at its peak, it was after the murder of George Floyd, which actually just highlighted America's contemptible levels of police brutality rooted in white supremacy. And while the act of aggression took place in the US, Canada actually shares, as we know, and as Odessa described in our land acknowledgement, these same colonial roots. And we're similarly afflicted with a system that perpetuates systemic inequality, resulting in countless unnecessary deaths and the criminalization of people of color at a disproportionate rate. So during the pandemic, we witnessed anti-Asian hate crimes, as many of you have witnessed, or you have friends who have told you about it, which is totally related to our white supremacist underpinnings. And we believe that until we as a society are fully committed to dismantling white supremacy, Black, Indigenous, and racialized members of marginalized communities will continue to suffer systemic or structural racism. And the arts sector is no exception. And either you have experienced this or you've heard about this, but if this is new, I can tell you the arts sector definitely has a lot of work to do in the area of systemic racism. And, you know, part of it, we hear arts organizations and nonprofit sector sometimes talk about being under-resourced, or there's reasons why we can't tackle systemic racism. And, you know, I really think it's about committing to it. So putting that time aside to do this work is a really important piece of dismantling white supremacy and really doing this work to combat systemic racism. This can mean, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but this means if you're going to consult with Indigenous and racialized artists, pay them. Or Indigenous and racialized folks, like really value their time. Don't expect free emotional and other labor from marginalized communities. And that's the beginning of doing that work. So I feel I do a lot of facilitating for arts organizations and nonprofits, and I get brought in, to solve, like, they're always like, we have a racism problem, now fix it in a 2-hour workshop. And I'm like, okay, really? Like, that's not possible. And so what concerns me there is that the commitment has to be deep. It has to be at the top level. You need your top level leadership believing in this and investing in this and contributing to it financially and resource wise. So with art sector and nonprofit sector, when I hear we don't have the resources to do this work, that's very concerning to me, because this is actually a super essential part of our work. If we keep running ahead without doing this work, we're going to just get further away from it. So we need to pause. And when we talk about decolonization, we need and anti-capitalism, we really need to remember a phrase, which is go slow to go fast. And it's super important that we slow down, we give time and space for these conversations so that we can do this work. And if you are going so fast that you don't have time or any funding to do this important work, then perhaps your organization, your artistic practice, your relationships are just moving too quickly. And then, how does this all relate to CultureBrew.Art? I mean, all of it does. I'm sure you can all put it together, but the main place, this is actually why I applied for this job as a project manager in June 2018, is because of this slide here, which just says, if we acknowledge that all media influence thought and behavior, commercials, film, TV, news, social media, internet, and the arts, then what we do and represent on stage and on screen has real world consequences. So one of my biggest experiences with racism on a personal level is people not understanding. So my father wore a turban and experienced a lot of racism. And, you'd go to school and people would go, oh, you smell funny, because my parents would cook, frankly, amazing food at home. And I'd go to school smelling like it. And these kids just didn't have the experience being in a more white dominant area. They didn't have the experience of seeing people like me. I looked different. My father looked different. My family ate different food. And, I would tell my mother, like, I just want a peanut butter sandwich for lunch, like everyone else. Like, why do you have to send me to school with like roti and curry? Like, it's even opening the container. And she put it in like an old yogurt container too. I'm like, can't we buy like store-bought containers for once? And like, now I realize that was like actually an act of environmentalism. She wasn't wasteful. She cooked healthy food, but, at the time, it was that being different that was an issue. So now when I watch shows like Kim's Convenience, or when I see people of color on television or in movies, you can feel the impact of normalizing it. And a lot of racism, most of us have experienced racism most probably in more rural areas, the more rural it gets. I was in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and I walked into a Tim Hortons and everyone turned to look at me. And I was like, wow, I don't think they see many people that look like me here. And I was like, the less exposure, the more racism that I experience. So for me, it's to my benefit to have people that look like us on screen, in movies, on TV, to represent that. So I think if we as artists are not engaging with the realities of the world in the here and now, what are we doing? So we have to really think about how we can really put ourselves there. It's not just about us getting opportunities in the arts. It's about our responsibility to make sure we are represented. I'm going to hand over to Odessa because she has a few things to say about this as well.
Hi, thank you, Anju. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about we've kind of talked about decolonization, or I don't know if you've heard that word, or if you're like, oh, that doesn't apply to me, I'm not First Nations, or I think sometimes that term seems like it belongs to First Nations people because we use it a lot because we were actively colonized and we are still actively colonized. But it applies to us personally. Like, I need to take responsibility for decolonizing my brain the way I think. That's a personal responsibility. Then my community has that responsibility, our nation does, and then everybody else who lives in this country, because we are benefiting from a white supremacist colonial society. So we all have to take on that responsibility to change the way we think about how we interact with others, and how we benefit from that, and how we can basically, well, we just have like proper representation, and just to think about the ideologies that we've absorbed. So Canadian arts and culture have the power to positively impact systemic racism and white supremacy if its systems are properly decolonized. And like Anju was saying, like, the arts community, it is one of the last bastions of, well, first sexism for one, and gender inequality, but also representation of other people, like any other racialized person, Indigenous person, Black person. It's quite incredible, actually. However, the flip side of that is actually has quite a lot of power to change and to influence, and to be moved and changed by art is certainly very powerful. And I think that is why a lot of us are drawn to any kind of expression, creative expression, because we are able to be ourselves and express ourselves and express these big ideas that need to be expressed. And they can influence and affect other people on a really core emotional level. So I think that's, I mean, personally speaking for myself, that is why I'm in the arts, and that's why I feel the need to, it's the passion, it's our burning desire. Decolonization is the process of deconstructing colonial ideologies of the superiority and privilege of Western thought and approaches. On the one hand, decolonization involves dismantling structures that perpetuate the status quo and addressing unbalanced power dynamics. On the other hand, decolonization involves valuing and revitalizing Indigenous knowledge and approaches in weeding out settler biases or assumptions that have impacted Indigenous ways of being. For non-Indigenous people, decolonization is the process of examining your beliefs about Indigenous peoples and culture by learning about yourself in relation to the communities where you live and the people with whom you interact. And that is a quote from a guide called Pulling Together, a guide for frontline staff, student services, and advisors. And it's by a bunch of authors, Ian Call, Robert L.A. Hancock, Stephanie McEwen, Michelle Pigeon, and Adrian Fidan. And I'll put that in the chat as well. It's a really great resource for so many different kinds of workers and artists, obviously, because I really felt like that applied here for us. So I think just take a moment. I don't know, sometimes people, when you say decolonization, I've had the reaction where people are like, whoa, or, you know, there's kind of like a step back, that I'm being too forward and too aggressive. But I don't think so. I think that we do need to take these big leaps in our thought processes because we have to change them. So it does require a little bit of uncomfortability, and especially when you're using phrases like white supremacy, you get this sometimes. But I think we do need to normalize the use of that so that we can all understand that that is the overarching pressure that we all live under, and that we can break through that with, you know, with our thought, with our actions, with our knowledge, and with our connections with other people. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of referencing what Anju was saying, seeing yourself in media or art and how important that is. So I don't know if you folks have heard of the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media. And Gina Davis, if you don't know, is an extremely famous actress, and she's an all-rounder. She's a writer, she's a director, she's a producer. She was an archery champion. She almost made the Olympics. She's this wonderful, brilliant woman, and her Institute on Gender in Media is to strive to remove unconscious bias in media, because we believe if she can see it, she can be it. And okay, I recognize that they are specifically addressing gender equality on screen, but I believe that this can be expanded to include racial identity, disability biases, any kind of identities that aren't typically seen in mainstream media. So that concept of see it and be it, I think, is really important, especially for underrepresented and marginalized groups and racialized people. So making these connections, we're hoping with CultureBrew.Art that you can hire other BIPOC people, racialized people. So we are strengthening our community. So it's not such a, we're not working with such a hierarchical kind of top-down approach, but we're making networks and working from a community basis.
Great. Thanks, Odessa. So going into the next section, after thinking about all of this, especially the importance of having marginalized people in our films, television, basically on screen and on stage for us. The concept of CultureBrew.Art was conceived by Valerie Singh Turner, the founder of Visceral Visions, to address this issue. So to really get BIPOC and IBPOC people really focused at the center of these opportunities. So CultureBrew.Art was put together, it's a product, it's a digital product, a platform that intends to create a database of Indigenous and racialized artists that we then have available with fulsome portfolios for what we're calling engagers. Engagers are basically any type of employer. That's like the film director, the casting director. But we're really thinking beyond the arts, because we don't, I've been working in the arts sector for 20 years. Valerie even longer. Odessa's been in the arts sector for a long time. And I have experienced that this goes far beyond just the arts sector looking for these folks. For example, in advertising, for advertising agencies, we see lots of these ads and it's like mostly white people. This response for what CultureBrew.Art can offer is to give an advertising agency the ability to potentially hire people that are not just all white people. So we have interest from advertising agencies, from schools that want to bring in speakers or even hire instructors. We have interest from social service agencies that are looking for artists to go in and do work with different groups. And, there's such a big list of who can access these artists. So we really wanted CultureBrew.Art to really reach a lot of these communities and the employers. And so that's really been our priority. And one of the biggest misconceptions that we experience and that we hear about, I still hear about today, is that the assumption by white engagers and employers that there just are no Indigenous and racialized artists in these areas. Like, oh, you should find a, you should consider hiring a sound designer who is IBPOC. And they're like, there are no good sound designers who are Indigenous and racialized. And we're like, what? No, that's not true at all. And we all know that's not true. But the employers and the engagers seem to have difficulty being creative to imagine something they haven't seen. And this is, again, going back to why it's important to see us on screen and to see us active, because it's really difficult, I think, for people to see something they haven't seen before. So we really need to make this visible. And so I think that what we're experiencing is that there's an issue with outreach. So people are not able to reach these people and communities and this talent And people are conflating it with a lack of supply. There's not a lack of supply. And there was a couple of, we worked with a Black artist, and he told us that when he was working on a play, he wanted to have an all Black cast, and they told him, oh, there's no Black people who do theater in Vancouver. And he's like, there are a lot of Black people who do theater in Vancouver. So he was quite angry about it. And he's like, this is just like, they don't see us. And actually this photo is of I'm pretty sure this was an all Black cast. I don't know if you can confirm that, Odessa. This was Omari's play. Yeah. So this piece was an all Black cast, and I believe Black writer and director, and like, it was not, it was possible, and it was not difficult. And it was actually a very, very successful play that happened in Vancouver. And so we just really want to make sure that we're, when we built this platform, we wanted to really have intersectional interculturalism. So it's really important to us to really promote interculturalism, because white supremacy is not just a white people thing. Like, I have been trained in white supremacy by living in a white supremacist context. And we have our own biases. We have our own things that we need to work out. So we really want to promote interculturalism. We need to, as Odessa said, Odessa is acknowledging to decolonize her own mind. I have to decolonize my mind. I need to undo the white supremacist training that I've had, that we've all had, and we need to acknowledge that. And so the intersectional interculturalism, so intersectionality, is really seeing all different perspectives. So, we're not just all equal. It's not just like, I'm brown, this person's white, and that's it. This actually, we really want to consider folks with disabilities. We really want to consider, queer folks when we talk about these things. We want to talk about all these different experiences, as Victoria mentioned, and a few of you mentioned experiences as immigrants as well. And so these varying perspectives, they matter, and they are super important in the dialogue. So that's a big part of our work, to be intersectional, to promote interculturalism, so listening to each other as well, to build connection, collaboration, and community. That's a big piece of our work. This isn't just like you post your thing up and you're done and then you get jobs and you move on. That's capitalist. We're not just here to redo the capitalist model. We want you to find each other. We want you to be like, oh, I'm going to make this play. I want to find somebody. We want Jessica in this session to hire Sayer to be in Jessica's play. Like, we want you to consider each other and to build that community and to talk about things, because I found it very important to me to have a community of Indigenous and racialized people to talk about things with. We want to be interdisciplinary. So our discipline list is pretty huge, and we are open to expanding. So we include all of the performing arts, including media arts. The only one that we haven't quite touched yet is visual arts. And that's only because visual arts requires a very specific structure that we need more consultation on. Visual arts works in a particular way. So our goal is to include visual arts in the future, but for right now, we are focused on performing and media arts. We just want to make sure that if we're going to offer the platform to visual artists, we know how to best show their portfolios. I don't think a visual artist would be very happy to have a crappy upload with crappy resolution of their work. And so we really need to make the technology and the platform fit for a visual artist. The other thing is we want to make sure that the platform is accessible financially and from the perspective of accessibility when it talks about people with disabilities or varying levels of need. We want to be national in scope. So this is not a Vancouver thing. 100%. This is a Canadian platform. We are covering the entire country. We want to make sure we prioritize the privacy and safety of an Indigenous and racialized artist. There are comparable products out there that are doing something similar. We have gone in a slightly different direction in one way, which is to really protect the identity and the information of all of the artists involved. So privacy is a really, really important piece for us. And I actually work on another contract with a web hosting company that is 100% focused on Canadian hosting, privacy, and security. And it's really important to us that we keep your data safe and that we keep your information private. And we actually are really hyper aware of making sure that we don't get predators into our system, because we know that Black and Indigenous women in particular are some of the highest targets for violence and harassment. So we are actually, for all of our communities that we serve, they are the most marginalized. So we do extra work to make sure nobody's going in there and doing anything that's not following our code of conduct and terms of service, which everyone has to sign when you sign by clicking a button. And then we want to make sure that the digital tools that we offer, so by the end of the session, we're hoping to learn more about what you need, are going to promote your artistic practice and solidarity. And on the employer and engager side, again, what do you need to hire people? What tools do you need? We will build them. And most importantly, we're building a digital home created by Indigenous and racialized artists for Indigenous and racialized artists. So the next slide I'm going to go to, well, this was planned so well, is our team. So our team is all Indigenous and racialized folks. That's who we hire. That's who we've been hiring the whole time. And again, it's, we often hear, oh, you can never find people, Indigenous and racialized people for these roles. We did. We found a great team. So we have Valerie Singh-Turner, who's our creative director, myself as a technical director, Odessa, who's the community builder and the person that we would recommend you reach out to with any questions. Our social media manager, Chris Gachalian, Diana, who is one of our interns, who's studying data analysis, and Alicia, who's also studying data analysis. So we really focus on keeping our team, and including the vendors we hire. Our communications firm is all Indigenous and racialized people. So just moving forward, this is a quick view. I'm just going to go through this really quickly, but Odessa is actually going to do a live demo with you all. But this is kind of what it looks like. When you go in and you sign up as an artist, you're going to get these steps that are going to tell you what you need to do. So you have, the first step is to set up your basic things that we need. And the things that we really want you to think when you're building your artist profile, we want you to think about being hired. That's the point of this. A big point of this is for you to find work and to be found. So we want you to think like an engager. So when you put in your racial ethnic identity, make sure it's something that they can find. We had an artist put in just mixed ethnicity as an ethnicity. Well, usually people who register for our platform aren't just going to look for a mixed person. They're going to look for a particular identity. So don't forget to put in your ethnic identity, because a lot of these opportunities might be people looking to increase diversity in a particular area. And put in all of your artistic disciplines. You can write in notes into your artistic statement saying, I'm a beginner in this area. I think there's a lot of, I'm going to talk about this later, but imposter syndrome among marginalized people where we question ourselves. So I just really want to recommend and really encourage you, even if you're like, I'm a writer, but I've only written one thing, so I shouldn't put myself as a writer. That's wrong. Put yourself down as a writer and just have that conversation, or in your artistic statement, just saying, I'm a writer, I'm new to this, and I want more opportunities. And you might find somebody who's willing to invest in you to let you have that chance. So include all your artistic disciplines. The second step is an annual fee of $25. We do not want this to be a barrier. So if you don't have a credit card to submit, or you don't have the $25, or both, you can apply for an exemption. And Odessa actually answers those emails, and she's really nice. So she'll probably just give you the full year for free. So do not let money be a barrier. And the last part is that you can publish your profile. There's a few safety and security items here. So with your identity, you can choose to not share it with an engager or an employer, and you can publish your profile when you want to be found. And then if you don't want work because you're so in demand, or you just can't handle it right now, or COVID's just too much and you need a break, you can unpublish your profile. And so here you would be able to publish, and you can connect with other artists and be found by engagers, and you can unpublish. And that's my profile there. That's kind of a quick introduction to the platform. And again, so we're seeing this as a way to foster intersectional interculturalism, build connection, community collaboration, It's interdisciplinary, accessible, national in scope. We're prioritizing artist safety and privacy, and we're providing digital tools to facilitate artistic practice and solidarity, created by Indigenous and racialized artists for Indigenous and racialized artists. So I'm going to pass this on to Odessa, who's going to talk to you a little bit about just the target disciplines that we focus on. But again, it's quite open.
Hi, folks. I just wanted to let you know that they're doing some work next door. So I don't know if you can hear it, but it's pretty loud for me. They are jackhammering or something. Anyway, so I apologize for that. So CultureBrew.Art is envisioned to serve two distinct communities. The first in our priority are Indigenous and racialized artists. And as we said before, this is a really broad group. And we are including performers of all kinds, actors, dancers, musicians, singers, anything from opera to hip hop. We work with directors of the stage, of the screen, fight directors, stunt directors, intimacy directors, technical directors, and any production staff. Any creators, be they writers, filmmakers, composers, choreographers, and finally behind the scenes artists such as set designers, costume designers, sound, lighting designers, projection designers, dramaturgs, producers, cultural workers in the film and broadcast industry, and much, much more. So obviously, we're always expanding, and we're always wanting to listen to what the needs are of our community, and we'll go from there.
Great. Yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of who's going to look for you. So we're really talking about the engagers and the employers who are trying to find Indigenous and racialized artists. I just wanted to show you this is a list that has been greatly expanded on by our marketing firm, who is really going into seeing who our targets could be. And it's much more than this. So this is a little bit of an older list, but already quite large. So theater, opera, and dance companies will be looking for artists to hire. Film, TV, and casting, of course. Festivals, indie producers, artist collectives, schools, post-secondary arts training programs. I know the Arts Institute here, Emily Carr, tends to want to hire practicing artists, and this platform is a really great opportunity for them to find people to hire to teach their classes. Community and social service agencies, we've had a lot of requests from those types of organizations. Ad agencies, government and funding agencies. Something that's not listed here that we experience a lot is just even recruiting for board of directors, which obviously the board of directors nonprofit model in Canada has its own conversation that it needs, because we want to diversify boards, and we're asking marginalized people to sit on them, but to basically do volunteer free work, which is a big conversation that's happening in the sector right now that I'm personally very interested in. But these are the people who are looking to hire the artists. So as an artist, you would join CultureBrew.Art with the focus of creating an excellent portfolio that gets you noticed, that puts you on these folks' radar, and when they're hiring, they would look for you. And so that's a big piece of the work that we do.
So as Andrew mentioned, we're about empowering artists. We believe in this. We believe in empowering Indigenous and other racialized artists, that it strengthens our community, and it helps us challenge the Eurocentric definitions of what art is and who gets to be an artist. So we're constantly redefining that, and we're we want to be flexible, and we want to build a responsive and open community that supports one another. Mentorship. We know that many Indigenous and other racialized people's traditional knowledge systems We're about sharing and the passing down of knowledge, stories, and songs instead of hoarding knowledge or releasing it in a hierarchical colonial structure where the top receives the most. So we're about breaking that down and creating and building up our own thing. Putting your best foot forward. So hopefully you can do that with us. We live in such a visual world now and mostly online. Currently, having digital assets of yourself available for possible engagers to see is of vital importance. So headshots, demo reels, trailers, a website, socials, any social media presence are all very, very important. And it was funny, as I was writing this, I was like, oh, actually, saying to Anju, I don't have a website. Wait a second. Hang on a second. I need to update my headshots. So, I mean, it's a continual practice to keep doing that, adding to your demo reel. So, I mean, we do have to wear a lot of different hats because we're promoting ourselves. So we're our own producers. We're also the artists. We're also our own marketer. But we're here to support you to do that. When you're uploading any parts, any videos or songs that you may be singing, so you're doing an audio clip or any photos, and I'll go through this in the live demo because I have some examples and you'll see. Please make sure that all of your materials are cleared, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more in the demo. For instance, I'll show you, I have a picture of me in a commercial that I just shot, and I was an actor in that commercial. But because that commercial is not released yet, I don't have permission to show that. So just because this is an outward facing platform, I don't have permission to show it. But once it gets shown on TV, then I do. So just be cognizant of that. So why does your portfolio matter? Well, because essentially we are all brands of ourselves, whether or not you think of yourself as that, or, I mean, I, for a long time, really resisted that. I was like, I'm not a brand, I'm myself. And, you know, my artistic vision is my own. But basically how you show yourself to the world and your work is an integral part of that. That essentially is your brand. And it don't think of it as diluting yourself. Think of it as a tool to help you engage with other artists, your community, and possible other engagers. You may get work out of this. So all of our online presences in every aspect online, Facebook, Instagram posts, every single post that you make is a branding of yourself. So I'm really cognizant of that on my Facebook page. I have kind of scaled over the years, because I realize I've had Facebook now for 12 years. Over the years, I've scaled back the personal stuff, and I post more professional things. And the things that I post more, I tend to do more inspirational things, or I do like a little photo essay, or I try to keep it more upbeat, because that is my brand that I'm showing on social media. My Instagram is kind of more visually oriented because I do some camera work. So I try to post more interesting photos that aren't necessarily about me and my personal journey, but things that are visually interesting to me that are reflective of my experience. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And our portfolio is kind of a part of that. So I have gotten work from Facebook. So, I mean, I have been reached out to directly by direct message, but I've also gotten some random, just in my feed, and I've seen somebody post something, and I was able to contact them, and it like blossomed into a job or a gig. But the thing is, that's totally random, and you know, it's just depending on the algorithm gods. But wouldn't it be great to be on a platform that was intentionally formed by artists and didn't rely on random algorithms to get information to you? So we can directly, we have a new feature that's going to be released, and it's the direct messaging to one another. And yeah, we're just creating something here that's hopefully, we're hoping that this is going to help you and your artistic vision, career, and help you get work in the future. Right. Okay. Well, thanks for coming back. So we're at, please follow along if you like, CultureBrew.Art. And this is our homepage here if you're not already a member. So we're going to click on Join the Community in the top right corner. So CultureBrew.Art, why would you join? Find and connect with Indigenous racialized artists, be seen as an Indigenous or racialized artist, have first access to opportunities. So registering a new account. So I'm going to use an old email. Don't laugh, it's a Hotmail account. Because I already have a bunch of tests on here. Okay, so I'm going to use my name, CPAMO. Sorry, CPAMO demo. And I am an artist. Now, obviously, if you're under the legal age, you would need your parent to sign off on this. Also, I'm not a robot. So, I mean, I hope I'm not a robot. Okay, create new account. So now I'm going to go to, oh, I have to log into my, oh, I'm having also troubles with this. That was a bad call to use that email address. Sorry. Now let's see here.
So while Odessa is fighting her email here.
I know.
That's really exciting to watch.
I know, isn't it just absolutely fascinating? Yes,
I just wanted to say that so when you use your email to set up your account, I just want to flag a couple of things. So first of all, sometimes the introduction email will be in your spam box. I'm wondering if I fit in any categories. So here, yes, writing. Writing is 100% fitting. And you know what? If they get more writers like you to write, you know, for the things that we're hoping that will happen in the near future for films and television, I think that'd be fantastic. So yes, writers fit. Writers are actually, we have a strong belief that writers actually are the ones who might drive change, because writers can really tell our stories. So please definitely include yourself there. You do fit. So what I was saying about the email is that the email might go to your spam box. So in Odessa's, it didn't. But the email might go to your spam box. That's the first thing. And second of all, I just want to flag that if you are going to create an Engager account in the future, you will have to use 2 separate emails because they're 2 separate profiles. So just a heads up that you will need. Yeah. And we typically expect that if you're going to be acting as an artist, you're going to have 1 email. Going back to Odessa's point about promotion and branding yourself, potentially even having a website. So you'd have you have email as an artist, and then if you sign up as an engager or an employer, ideally you would have either an organizational or another email to work from. So Odessa, I'll pass it back over to you if you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. So yeah, I went on a little sojourn there with the password, having not remembered that password, having not used that email for quite some time. Thank you. So you get the link, it's emailed to you, and it's for security reasons. So here we are, we're clicking in log in, and it's a one-time use. So confirm, we're just gonna make a password. And it matches, hooray. So this might look familiar to you. We had that in our presentation. So step 1 is edit your profile, and then when that's all done, I'll do that. And then step 2 is pay, or we'll put in the promo code, and then step 3 is publish. So we'll go to edit. Profile basics. So we do have to put these in. They are mandatory fields, and you can tell by the little star there. So I'm going to put in a headshot. So what I did, I had some fun with some filters. So instead of headshots, because as I told you, I did need some new headshots. So let's see, is that that uploads while that's doing that. Okay, so yay. I'm in Vancouver, BC. Click. Banner image. Let's see, browsing. Come on. I don't know why it's not. Okay, well, maybe you can't do that one. Okay. Anyways, artistic statement. Let's see, I've already written one. This is my, this is on my artist site, and it's the bio that I use for a lot of things. It's got, for me, I like to say who I am, and I like to say where I live, and a little kind of summary of my schooling and a little bit about my artistic practice. Links to resume, website, or social media. So in here, if I put one in, okay, I'm gonna do my Instagram. If I put one in, it's gonna add another, and then see, add another item. And oh, whoops. And I will do, just for fun, I will do my IMDb. Let's see if that works. Oh.
There is twice HTTPs, so this is why it wouldn't work.
Oh, well, anyway.
And it's
Sure, that's amazing. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, sorry, Odessa, you just have to move the HTTPS. You have it twice there.
Oh, I see. It populated that. I see. I get you.
So you can just, yeah.
So it populates the HTTPS. Okay, I got you. So I don't need that. Yeah. No, I don't need that. Sorry. Ah, I clicked on a link. Okay, so here's my IMDb page. There you go. See, it does all this work for you. Isn't that great? So I have other ones, but I won't take up tons of time. So my representation, I do have an agent. So moving pictures.
I just want to flag that that for underage artists, so artists under the age of majority, which in Canada is 19, that we require, sorry, in that, if you go back to that block, we require the parent's name under, oh, sorry, represented.
Yeah.
By,
represented by, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Represented
so,
by.
Yeah, so right here, you would put in the name of the parent or guardian. Because there's actually a lot of opportunities for people trying to hire young people, children, teenagers, and their careers grow really fast. And we need to make sure it's legal. We need to make sure that at least a parent is involved. I mean, hopefully your kid would end up getting so far in their career that they just need an agent. But in the meantime, it's you.
Exactly. And we're super committed to the privacy of our members. So terms of service, I agree. If you want to read it, it's right here. So definitely give that a read.
I just want to make one comment about the terms of service. So what we tried to do, if you notice, is on the left, if you scroll to the top, Odessa, you'll notice on the left here, we have the language, like the contract language, which a lot of us were like, okay, who wants to read this? So what we did was on the right, we did a really simple explanation in plain language. You can see how much shorter it is because that's really all it's saying. It's like, why did they make these big long things? Because of legalese, we need it. But if you wanted to understand what's in here, you can just read the right column all the way down, and then you'll know what's really there. And it just kind of like explains what it is.
Very helpful. That's awesome. Thank you. And our code of conduct is right here. Do no harm. And we really encourage you to read this thoroughly, of course. And yeah, I'll let you folks do that. So I agree to that. I save and continue. So there we go. That's the first step. So who I am, while providing your racial ethnic identity is the only mandatory field, we encourage you to complete other fields so that your profile will appear in more searches. To respect your privacy, we will provide the option of limiting access to your gender and sexual orientation information to the following. 1, only artists who share the same gender or sexual orientation as you. 2, only artists in CultureBrew.Art, not engagers. Or 3, everyone, artists and engagers. If you don't wish to be found by gender or sexual orientation by anyone, please leave these sections blank. So that's very important. So how I self-identify. There's a lot of different boxes to check here. I'm going to check this one because that's me. And, you know, if you're others, you can press those ones as well. And if there's a different way you'd like to identify, you can write that there. So I will save that.
Actually, I'm going to speak to a couple things there.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, if you don't mind. So the how I self-identify came up in our consultations with artists. And the issue that we found was, okay, so my ethnic background is South Asian, but I was raised and my community talks in a way that we call ourselves East Indian. Now, East Indian doesn't really necessarily make sense when we talk about racialized and ethnic identity, because South Asians can live in Africa, in UK, like there's different parts. And so we're talking about racialized ethnic identity, but I did feel a little bit uncomfortable, and lots of other artists we consulted with felt really uncomfortable to use these categories alone because they identify in a different way. So how I self-identify is really meant for you to express yourself, and also for us to understand how people are talking about themselves, which is always changing. So this is for you for an option. Mixed ethnicity, I just want to point out at the bottom. If you are mixed, or if you're sharing this with anyone and they're mixed, make sure they don't just put mixed, because what does that mean? We want to make sure they add what their mix is, at least one or more, so that they show up in searches.
Yeah, thank you for all that clarification. So I will save that. Gender identity, this is, you know, it's very private information. We completely understand that. And you don't have to share it, but we do need to have it filled out. So for me, my gender identity is female. And see here, I can choose. So this is just for me. I can see this on my profile and nobody else can see it when I look myself up. If I wanted to share with other people, just artists who also identify as female, or all CBA artists, or engagers as well when we open it up to engagers. So for now, I keep that there. That's just my own preference. And we understand too that there's this is a very fluid and dynamic way to identify. And we understand that terminology changes, and we just want to always be open to that, to listen. And there's other ways that you identify in this way. So save. And same with this. So again, we're here.
Oh, sorry, I just want to go back to gender identity and point out one thing. Gender identity is actually not required.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you that's only if you open the box. I don't know why.
Oh, I see. Oh, sorry.
So if you click save, you'll see that the only things that are required here is the my profile box at the top, the artistic discipline, and the racial ethnic identity.
Okay, copy that. Thank you again for that clarification. That's fantastic. Okay, so we're back. All right, so you can put any one of these here as well. So let's see, I'll press that, so that's good. And we're saving that. If you're a deaf artist, you would first click this and then the languages that you use. And there's a save button there as well. Artists with disability identifiers, same thing. And however you'd like to put that down as well. Now, this is what Andrew was saying, this artistic discipline, this is the one that we really need. So, you know, hey, I'm an actor for sure. I'm an actor, so I will do that. Let's see. I can do a British accent pretty well, usually. So I'll do that. Let's see. Oh, is this the one that kind of gets a bit? Anyways, special skills. Let's see. Voiceover. Here I have these ones. Save. Okay.
So, you just have to hit enter when you put in the tag and it will get rid of that notice. So if you add something, type it in and then click enter.
What did I put? Voiceover. Aha. There we go. And we're saving that one. If you want to go back and you want to put more, you can put other things, can't we?
Yep, you can put as many tags as you want.
Add another discipline, right? So what if I say, oh, you know what? Actually, I just wrote a short narrative script, which is true. I actually just did that. So I'm going to put this on here. I'm a writer. Ta-da. All you have to do to be a writer is to write. So let's see. I don't screenwriter, so ta-da, I'm a screenwriter. This is very empowering. I love this. And languages, you can put in any languages that you sign or speak or write. Unfortunately, I only have English, so it's kind of sad. Marketable skills. Let's see, I can grant write. And if I had additional skills, could write it in. What else could I put in here? Anyways, yeah, write it in and press enter and it will give you that. So what I wanted to show you, I just wanted to add a couple more images because your portfolio is important, of course, like I was saying before. Now, I'm not sure why these additional buttons aren't working. Let's see if the video one does. Let's see. Okay, I have a trailer that I made for a documentary that I made a couple years ago. So add that in. Okay, fantastic. Let's see. Audio.
Don't forget to hit save on that.
Save. Yeah, that's important. Audio. I don't have, okay, so I do have an audio file, but it doesn't sit in another service. So I won't upload that.
You can also add files to your profile. So because my work is primarily music and sound art, I actually uploaded almost all of my audio files. Perhaps it's just your browser, Odessa, but I'll look into that. You can skip that.
It could be my browser. I'm using Firefox and it's just not as robust as Chrome. I know that. Okay. So I save that. Let's see. Oh, add file. I clicked add file. So let's see. Let's just call it that. I wonder if I can. We'll see.
Yeah, just try closing the module.
Yeah.
At the top.
Closing the module at the top. See, this is fun. We're all learning things. Okay. Professional associations. Okay. So I am a member of this.
I just want to make a comment about this one. Professional associations is super important because there are some engagers and employers who will only hire, for example, if you're with, you know more about this, Odessa, I'll let you speak to this.
we see this happens quite a bit, and you know, it's kind of the double-edged sword of unions, actually. So I'm of two minds, but they can definitely help you get work, and but they can also hinder you in the way that, I mean, for instance, I belong to Equity, and that's the actors, like the theater actors guild. And then if you want to do something that's not an Equity show, you have to get special permission, etc. But they are there by and large to, you know, to make sure you're being paid properly and that you have access to benefits, etc., etc. So if you belong to any of them, it's a good thing to put this here. Now, aspirationally, let's say I don't quite belong to these people yet, but I would like to. So just in my world here, I belong to it. And sometimes as an actor, I have to put down my affiliations, and they actually will offer, it's their union's mandate to offer jobs to the members first, the full and, you know, dues paid members first. So, I mean, yeah, you have to really see if it's the right fit for you, but it can really help you get work. So something to think about. Okay, so we're saving. So there you go. So you can see all the ones that I've added. Dialects, sort, yeah, there we go. And then we're going to go to step 2. You can, there's a pay at the bottom as well, just so you know. So we're going to go to pay. Payment details, yes, yes, yes. And I'm completing payment. And the final step is publish profile. So we can sort of check here. Yep, that's all there. Great. And we're going to go to publish. And profile is live. Hooray, we did it. So that's what that's going to look like. And then once you're published, you may go ahead and find and connect other artists. So let's just say, for instance, we want to connect with people in Ontario, and we want to connect with media artists. And oh, Howie. Oh, I know Howie. That's awesome. Let's try it. We'll just do all disciplines. Okay, all ethnicities. Okay, Ontario. So here we go. And you can see there's a lot of people here from Ontario, musicians, directors, writers. Yeah, you can click on them and see their profile. Anyway, yeah, so that's how you do that. And if you do have any issues at all, you can give me an email at odessa@culturebrew.art or community@culturebrew.art, and I'm happy